Advisory Committee on Rural Health and Human Services. Also with me, Dr. Ramina Asqui, cardiologist, CEO of Foxhall Cardiology, has been studying all these numbers. Dr. Collier, you're a physician and you've been a governor. How do you weigh the costs and benefits now of what we're doing today to try to flatten that curve, save lives, but also, as the president said, give people hope that these are objective metrics that can be met in some reasonable amount of time?
You know, we're at a time when we're seeing science playing out before our eyes. We're really starting to get a better view of what these numbers look like, what those curves are starting to bend, and how they bend. So while we have a few questions, while we have lots of questions here, we're starting to see things with a little more clarity. We're starting to see things at work. We're starting to see what therapies may be out there that are really starting to help us.
Dr. Fauci said today about hydroxychloroquine, Dr. Asqui, and we'll play it, because he was asked again, like the president was discussing, what about the merits of these therapies? This is what Dr. Fauci said.
We're rushing this stuff through. This was supposed to take a long time to be approved, and I prevailed upon the FDA to get it approved immediately on the basis that it was already on the market for a lot of years, for another years. It would be a total game changer. There's a whole menu of drugs and interventions that are now going into clinical trials that are not approved for anything yet. The drugs that you want to show in a good randomized clinical trial, at very best, are going to take months.
At very best, they're going to take months, Dr. Asqui. These therapies are being used now all over the United States and indeed all over the world, are they not?
Absolutely they are, and I think that Dr. Fauci doesn't seem to appreciate that essentially, like in polio, we don't have time to do beautiful randomized clinical trials. We know these drugs have a very good safety margin, very specifically hydroxychloroquine. The major risk factor is that it can cause EKG abnormalities, but that's something that's easily monitored. These drugs are clearly effective and safe. They've been around for a long time. They're cheap. They're easy to access. Our biggest problem, however, with hydroxychloroquine may be getting enough of it. I think we have to think about how do we upscale production. And the other thing we need to think about is potentially prophylaxing healthcare workers with low doses of hydroxychloroquine to prevent them from getting in trouble and getting infected.
Dr. Collier, I've been hearing this from my medicine cabinet, as I like to call a lot of you guys, for days and days, that physicians themselves are taking hydroxychloroquine as a prophylactic against themselves coming down with this virus and perhaps getting seriously ill. Dr. Collier, what about that? They're prescribing it to themselves. It's already happening.
No, it's already happening. You know, there are patients that are very high risk. You know, you've made an intubation out in the field with a COVID patient, you don't have PPE. You know, you have to give people some options. And in a responsible way, we're seeing people working on this. There is a study, but we're also seeing people using it appropriately. We're also seeing that if you treat people early in this illness, that they do recover. We have the numbers from France, for example, 78 out of 80 hospitalized patients treated early all returned home.
Dr. Asqui, a new study that came out just tonight, the Lancet, I believe it was actually the CDC's numbers. They did a survey. We'll put it up on the screen about comorbidities and this virus. This, again, just came out. 78% of ICU patients with COVID-19 have at least one underlying health problem, 32% diabetes, 29% cardiovascular, lung disease, long-term kidney disease. Diabetes seems to be a significant driver, and again, they're going to do an even bigger survey, but this was a significant number of people that they've already looked at. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think my thoughts are that we also don't include so-called pre-diabetes here, but clearly diabetes is problematic. This will not be the last study that shows this, and I think it means that we need to engage in major lifestyle changes where we're not diabetic anymore. Remember, half the people over the age of 65 qualify as type 2 diabetics. Our diets are terrible, and that needs to dramatically change going forward.
Dr. Collier, do those numbers surprise you? Because a lot of the European physicians writing in these research papers say, well, are people dying of COVID-19, or in some cases are they dying with COVID-19? Now, I'm not a doctor, I don't know what really that meant, but it's interesting regarding the comorbidities. Dr. Collier, final thought on that.
Yeah, there are a lot of things going on when you have diabetes or these other illnesses, and a human is a fragile machine, and so if everything is, one thing's out of balance, whether it is your sugar or your kidneys or your lungs or your heart, just a little bit can throw people over the edge. And that's why we really need more studies. We need more therapy, for people early on.
Yeah, and we will, I think, have in the coming days, and I hope very soon, more details on that aspect of it. Doctors, it's great to see you both tonight. Thank you both for what you do on a daily basis. We really appreciate it. All right, the coronavirus.